Do you see more of the younger kids buying comics, or is it mostly the older comic book generation, classic comic book generation?
Well, I see a lot more females reading comics nowadays, and I see a lot more, I see younger kids, and I see more professional-looking fans. There's nothing more annoying than seeing
Go ahead and say it.
overweight geeks who live in their mother's basements, fanboy geeks, walking
the
around.
Stereotype, probably the stereotype.
Well, that further perpetuates the stereotype that comic book fans are losers. And I think when you have Playboy models at shows, it just sort of feeds into that geek mentality.
What's your opinion of local comic book shops around Rochester? Do they carry any of your books by any chance?
Some do, some are better than others. It depends on what your main area of interest is. They all have their specializations and sub-specializations, and if they carry what you're looking for, that's your shop. There's certainly enough that if you're happy collecting mainstream comics, you might enjoy one. If you like an eclectic, esoteric collection, you might go to another shop.
What's your favorite old or new Saturday morning cartoon show, or perhaps a show that's on the Cartoon Network? Do you have like a couple favorites that you get into?
I like old Popeye cartoons, the black and white ones, the Max Fleischer shorts. I like Ren and Stimpy cartoons. I find the Powerpuff Girls enjoyable. I like really, really old Scooby-Doo from the late 60s, early 70s. We're talking pre-Scrappy days.
Before Scrappy-Doo. Which comic in any media, newspaper or television or whatever, do you dislike or have qualms about?
I find Kathy insulting to artists across America. I find Dilbert's humor biting at times, but it's very amateurly drawn. I don't particularly care for some of the old strips that have been kept on life support that are written by committee, drawn by a staff, and haven't been funny in 20 years.
What are some of your interests or hobbies outside of what you do as an inker or artist?
Well,
is there some other things that are you into collecting?
I collect comics, I collect toy rings, cereal premium and bubblegum machine rings, collect Popeye memorabilia. I collect a lot of junk, some would say.
Like McDonald's glasses and things like that. By family, I heard you're related to science fiction artist H.R. von Dungen. Can you tell us a little bit about him or what he does?
Well, he was an artist in the 50s. He painted science fiction magazine and book covers from the 50s through the 70s, and he's actually my second cousin, so I don't really know much about him. I'm going to actively seek him out and find out his story soon.
Have you met or are you actually related to Star Trek's Will Wheaton? I think you've met him before.
No, and I have never met him. He was supposed to have been at 2 science fiction shows that I've attended, and he canceled both times.
Are you more of a Star Trek or Star Wars fan, if you had to choose one of the two?
Well, I grew up watching the classic Star Trek shows, and I'm very partial to their characters, those classic 79 shows and the films that they star in. I'm not a fan of the new generation, the next generation, the Voyager generation, the whatever, I don't even know the first, Enterprise generation. I don't know any of those. I'm not too familiar with those shows, and I'm not really a fan. But
you would still take it over Star Wars, though?
I'd take the classic Star Trek characters. They'd kick Luke, Han, and Chewbacca's ass. I do love the original 3 Star Wars films, however.
Who are your favorite inkers? I know that you get into some of the inker type people.
Well, one of my favorites from the One of my favorite inkers throughout the years has been Tom Palmer. I had the pleasure of meeting him in November of 2000, and was quite impressed with him as a person as well. He worked on the Star Wars comic book for years, and Tomb of Dracula, The Avengers. He just has a very polished style, and he can make anyone look good. Another inker, Will Blyberg, is a favorite of mine. He's worked on Astro City when that was out a few years ago. That's it.
By the way, do people still think you...
One more. Joe Sinnott. Joe Sinnott, who inked Jack Kirby for many years on Fantastic Four.
Oh, okay.
Is one of the best inkers of all time.
This is kind of a goofy question, but do people still think you look a little bit like President Clinton or Conan O'Brien?
I don't get Bill Clinton as much anymore. I get Conan O'Brien a lot. I get Craig Kilborn probably more often now. I get that guy who was in Mask.
Yeah,
Eric Stoltz.
Eric Stoltz.
I get Eric Stoltz a lot.
Outside of Mask, I assume.
well, not his Mask
character,
but
I heard you can imitate Hank Hill from King of the Hill pretty good.
That's not true. Peggy says I do. But John Redcorn said that I do a terrible impression.
It's very good. Is there any last comments or anything you want to talk about media in general, within comics or outside of the comic book world?
No.
Nothing about TV shows or anything?
No.
Movies?
No.
No comments?
No.
Okay. Thanks for your interview, Ken, and hopefully this will turn out good.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see if this...